Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to this week's Journal for All Seasons. Following on with the theme of fallen leaves, I mentioned it last week. I thought what I'd do is, I've got my watercolour paints out here, out of shot. I thought I would look at a leaf, I'd choose a leaf and look at it and pick out the colours, because there's many colours in there, and just do a little swatch mark. And this paper is, I think it's mixed media paper on the left here, so I'll do the swatching onto that, and then I'll make some kind of arrangement with the leaves on this other page. And this is just very thin, I don't know if it's copier paper or what it is, but it's very thin. It's got a bit of ink on it that I cross-contaminated from a previous page. I don't know what I'll do on that. I don't want to leave it just white. I might try doing a watercolour wash, although it'll probably bubble up, you know, because it's cheap paper. But we'll see. So we'll start with the swatching. But before I get into that, well, there's two things. One is I've actually moved, not house, just within my home. I'm now sitting in the kitchen. I've put my desk in the kitchen, and I've gone down to one camera stand. I did have two bolted together. My Frankenstand, as I called it, but it was very ungainly and it was starting to flop and it wasn't really working anymore. But it does mean that this is as high as I can get you, so you can't see the whole journal. You can pretty much see all of this page where I'm going to do the painting, because it's small, you know. But when I come onto the other page, I don't think you can even see where I said the ink is. But what I'll do at the very end is I'll hand hold the camera and give you a scan of the whole spread. I have got a couple of little wooden shelves that I'm going to put up on the wall here above me, and I am going to try and attach the camera stand to one of the shelves so that I can get it higher up, and also that means it won't be attached to the table, so I won't wobble you when I move the table. So I haven't done that yet, so you just have to bear with me for this week, I'm afraid. I'm sure you will. But before I get into choosing a leaf, I just wanted to correct myself because I said in the previous weeks that the leaves that I was using were sycamore, and they're actually not. And I have to thank Nina, hello Nina, for bringing this to my attention in her wonderful, gentle way, as she always does when she corrects me. I don't think she'd even like for me to call it correcting me. These are Norway maples. This is a sycamore, and the difference is, the most obvious, apart from the colour, I mean, but when they're green, they're both the same shade of green, is that the sycamore leaf, and I'll just pick this off the path, it's a bit rumply and, you know, has got these serrated edges. I mean, so it's got the points and it's got the lobes in the same way that the maple has, but it's got, whereas up here is smooth, on this one, on that run of it, so to speak, do you see it's serrated? So that is the main difference as far as I can tell. I don't know if I've gone my whole life thinking Norway maples were sycamores, or whether there are just Norway maples here in the local woods where I walk and I haven't really come across them before, or what's happened. But anyway, I just wanted to correct that. They're both Acer. That's Acer pseudoplatanus, the common sycamore. I can't remember what that is, Acer something or other. So I'm going to use the maples because they've got more colours in them than the sycamore. But I just wanted to clear that up and say thank you to Nina. Every day's a school day, isn't it? We can always learn, and I'm always grateful to learn. So I've got these three, which I chose because they're kind of in varying sizes, so small, medium and large. I guess that could have been a bit smaller, but anyway, those are what I found. So I'm just going to pick one. I think I'll go with the biggest one because I can see the most colour variations in it. And like I said last week, if you don't have fallen leaves where you are because it's not autumn, or you're in a city, or you're in a desert, or, you know, somewhere where there aren't deciduous trees, you could maybe choose something else, a natural found object of some kind, or something within your home, you know, if you've got a pebble that you've picked up at one point, or a bit of interesting wood or something like that. Or if you don't have any of that, you could also just try and find a picture in a magazine or on the internet of an autumn leaf and print it out, maybe, if you can print. and do the swatching from that, and then cut it out and stick it in your journal. Here comes Fred. This desk in the kitchen has now taken the place of the kitchen table, and Fred's food is on it, so it might also mean that he turns up more, which is not entirely what I really want when I've got my paints out. He's now walking on my paints. Luckily I haven't activated them yet. Fred, you got that cadmium orange stuck to your foot, babe. Go on, there's a good boy. Let's move that over there. So yeah, it's a little bit, I hope it's not too chaotic this week, because I haven't entirely finished setting up, but Joey's here as well, in my defence, so we went out yesterday. Sorry, he wants the rest of his meat that he has for breakfast, and I usually put a plastic lid over it when he's finished because it doesn't smell very nice, and then summer also to keep the flies off. Anyway, he's happy now, but you might hear munching sounds. I'm sure you don't mind. Get on with it, Catherine. Right, so we've got this leaf. I think I'm gonna maybe stick all 3 leaves in later, but I'm gonna work from this leaf. So I put the others to one side. So I've got my paints, like I said, my watercolour paints, and I've chosen a 1/2 inch flat brush so that it will naturally make little rectangle shapes when I paint. And I'm going to just drip some water onto my paints. Looking at the leaf now, I can see there are shades of red, shades of yellow and orange. There's also shades of green and brown. Excuse me. There's many different colours in there, so we'll just see where we get to. I might start with the yellows and gravitate out. So I'm going to start by just dripping some water onto my little section of yellows here, and we'll just have a little play. Just fancy doing a bit of painting. So I'm not going to be, super precise about it. I'm not making a Pantone reference or anything. This is art after all. But I am just trying to look into the leaf and see the details. So I think I can see maybe 3 different shades of yellow. I mean, they kind of blend into each other. The sun's come out, as you can probably see. I think I'm going to start with the Gamboge yellow, which is kind of a goldy yellow. I've got my little bit of cloth here to get, if my brush gets too wet. And I'm going to just put a bit on my palette. I'm sorry you can't see. Actually, maybe I could put that on there. Just finding my way with the new setup. Like I said, when I get the thing up above, higher, it'll be better. So hopefully you can see now. So I'm just getting some of that out onto my palette. So that's called Gamboge yellow. That's this goldy mustardy yellow. And I think I'm going to mix in a little bit of the cadmium yellow, just to one side of it. I think that's a little bit too much water. And also you can hear the fridge in here, and you won't be able to hear the clock at the moment, but I am probably going to move the clock into here so you can hear it. So I'm just going to do that, basically. It's no big, no biggie. And then I'm going to mix a little bit more of the Gamboge in, because I do think if you look there at my brush, that is the right kind of colour, and then it goes gradually more reddish as it comes up towards where the leaf is red. So I think I'm going to do a bit of artistic license and just go through the yellows, just adding more of the Gamboge, just because I like saying it as much as anything else. Maybe just put a bit more into it. It's just having fun really, isn't it? That's what it's all about. It's getting darker, and now for the last one in the line I might take pure Gamboge and do one there like that. I like swatching anyway. It's just something about just making those little brightly coloured marks on the page. And now I think I'm going to just get a bit more water on my brush and just clean it a tiny bit. I'm going to go into one of these, which one's Indian Red. The trouble is I'm such a messy pup with my paints. Indian Red's that one. I made this swatch when I first got them. I swatched them all and wrote the names underneath. So I've got that there so I can see, but you can't see, I'm afraid. So Indian Red is this one here. Let's get some of that. And just mix a little bit between my brush into the gamboge. And then go back the other way, why not? Like so. And then mix a little bit more gamboge. Sorry, red, more of the Indian Red. And then even more. The Indian Red is quite an opaque paint, so it gets quite, see there, I've gone very strong. You can, of course, if you do that with watercolours, lift it off a bit. Although I don't really want to mess up my neat little swatches. But you can do that. And then make it a bit more yellow. If you decided that was too much, you know, I didn't leave me much room to go any further. So can I just mix a bit more yellow into it on the paper. This mixed media paper is quite forgiving. And with watercolours you kind of have to go with it as a medium. It's a lot of people are kind of afraid of it because of the lack of control. You know, with acrylics you have much more control. You mix a colour, you put it on and it pretty much stays. But that's what I kind of like about them, really. I want to get that a bit stronger. And I would say as well, if you're new to watercolours, often, because I made this mistake or misjudgment myself, I thought, well, I'm not very good yet, so I don't deserve good materials. So I had really cheap watercolours and I only used really cheap paper. But that doesn't give you as good results. So I just think if you have, you know, if you do have the budget, I think it's better to just get a little set of good quality paints and a little pad of good quality paper. So I'm just going to have my last sip of tea before it goes cold. You know, it's better to get a small amount of good quality than to get, you know, a big set of cheap paints. That's just what I think. Because you'll get better results and you'll have more, you know, you'll have more joy in doing it, and you're more likely to take to it. This brush, by the way, this is from Jackson's, which is an art supply company here in the UK. I think it was about £4 or £5, so it's not a budget brush, but I mean you can spend a lot of money on paintbrushes. So it's sort of an in-between kind of, you know, in-between kind of brush, but I like it very much. It's very nice to hold, the bristles are nice, it makes a nice mark. So there we go. So we've got our second line of the sort of more orangey reds, and now I want to get it more into this actual red wine. Remember that old song by UB40? You'll all be singing it now if you know it. So I'm just thinking, what red might that be? And here my swatch is handy because on the palette the colours look different sometimes to how they look on the paper, and I swatched this onto watercolour paper. So I'm just looking, see it's definitely down here in these, I think it's possibly that light red, but maybe with a little bit of something from up here, maybe a bit of alizarin crimson mixed in, just to brighten it slightly. So I'll start with that and see where I get to. So I'll clean my brush again in the water. I think I'll get some alizarin first, which is this one. It's a bit too much water. It's also controlling the water with watercolours, and I'm a dabbler. You know, I'm not an expert. If you want to learn about watercolours, then I'm not your girl, really, because I'm not even a mixed media artist. I'm a stitcher. I'm just playing here. So I'm only telling you what I found and what I think. So now I've got that there, I'm going to go back and get some of the light red, which is slightly less opaque as the Indian red. So it's this one, and it's also got black or something on it from whenever I used it before. And I'm going to mix quite a lot of that with a bit of the alizarin and just see where I get to see how it looks. And I'm just going to swatch it on the page. You could, if you wanted to, you know, if you were more worried about it looking right first time, you could just try it on a bit of scrap. I think it's getting there. It maybe needs slightly more alizarin, which is another fun thing to say. I just love all the names of paints, don't you? Well, it's like poetry, you know, Purple Lake. I always think of Purple Rain by Prince. Rose Madder, I think of Madder Madder, you know, the natural dye madder. I keep getting a drip of water, which I don't really want. And I'm aware I'm up out of the gutter, but my gutter's quite deep, so I'm just going with it. It's just where it's comfortable to daub. So that's where I'm daubing. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think I could have gone even more alizarin. So maybe we'll do that for the next one. Get a bit more. Such a beautiful colour, alizarin crimson. There we go, that's more red, that's more like it. I think it's just a good exercise as well, not only in the painting part of it, but in the looking part of it. I've talked quite some time ago, I think, in a Park Home Life video about something called active looking, because we see things, we don't necessarily look, if you understand the distinction. I think now I'm going to mix a bit of the Indian red in, just to make it a bit more opaque, and just see where I get with that. Yes, I like that. But if you do this exercise, it's why people sketch before they commit to making a painting or a more in-depth study. It's why proper artists, in inverted commas, in air quotes, do I don't know how many sketches from different angles of things, isn't it, before they actually go and that's virtually the same colour. I actually wanted it to get a bit darker. Let's put a tiny bit more of that Indian red. I don't really want to start putting grey or black in it. Yeah, it's why they study things from all angles. I might put the merest, tiniest little blob of Payne's grey, just to see. You can always just wipe it away with a cloth and start again. And put a tiny blob, then clean my brush, and dub it on my thing, and then just pull a bit in, a little bit at a time, and just see what it does. I think this is the best way to learn with materials if you can't afford to go and have fancy classes from a proper person, is to experiment with them. But I mean, there are also some great artists on YouTube sharing their expertise freely that you can go and watch. Now see, that's just dulled it down a bit, but it's not as dark, it's not as pigmented. So I'm just going to add a bit more alizarin straight off the pan, and a bit more of the light red straight off the pan. And I haven't cleaned my brush in between, as you see. And just mix those two together with a tiny bit of the Payne's grey. I like the Payne's grey as a darkener rather than the black. That's just what I've discovered by playing. And that's made that slightly more pigmented. There's not much difference between that and that. In fact, I might just darken that up slightly. And of course when they dry they'll be different. That's better. That's just, yeah, that's better. So now we are into the greens. So I will clean my brush a bit more thoroughly and blob it on my rag. Now greens, that is a broad section of the spectrum. I'm just going to put my rag over there because it's handier. You don't really need to see it. So looking at this, they're more kind of olivey greens going into maybe more bottle greens. So if I look at the greens I've got available to me, I'm thinking they're kind of this Hooker's Green Dark and the Sap Green, somewhere in those two, you know, the more olivey greens, I call those, rather than these are the more bluey greens. So I think I'm going to have a play with those two, and then possibly I'll pull in a bit of yellow to start with into the sap green to make it even more sort of limey green, and then work my way through, building up to the Hooker's Green Dark, and then possibly at the end adding some of the browns, because that's where we're going finally, is into the browns. So yeah, it's just because you see this leaf, you think, oh, that's a beautifully coloured autumn leaf, but then you start doing this exercise and you really have to look, and at first glance you might say it's yellow, it's red, it's green, but then you can look into the yellow, the red and the green, and then you can see all the other colour variations that come along. And if you were sketching, you could do the same exercise with textures or lines, or, you know, there's many things you can do, many different exercises you can do. And for me, it's the self-care aspect of that, is the mindfulness of that. You get thoroughly absorbed in that process of just this one little simple fallen leaf, and studying it, and then you could turn it over and, you know, look at the texture on the back of it. You could make a leaf rubbing, you know, we've done the stitching, and this is all this mindful practice of engaging with just this one leaf, or, you know, a few leaves from that same tree. Okay, so let's go into the greens. I need to get a bit more water on my brush because it's dried while I was wittering. So we'll start here with the sap green that's already had some white on it from my previous adventures. Just get it going with some water. I just love this brush. I'll get some on there. I don't need very much for these little swatches. And then I said I was going to put some yellow. I'm just looking at my yellows again. I don't think I want to go up into these really acid yellows, the lemon yellow or the cad pale. I'm not sure Gamboge is right. I'm not sure it's going to do enough. I think I'm going to go with the cad yellow, the cadmium yellow that was stuck to Fred's foot. So that's this one. Oh, which I've already used, so it's already activated. So I'll put a little bit just to the side of my green. I've got green on my brush because I didn't clean it. And get a bit of the yellow and add it to the green. I think that's about right, you know. So we'll go here. Yeah, I don't think that's too bad at all. That's pretty good. I'm looking right in here. I don't know if you can see. I don't want to bring it so close it goes blurry. But right in here there's these sort of almost acid yellow greens. Green yellows, whichever. So I think that's a good start. We'll do the same thing again. We'll add a little bit more of the sap green to it, to the mix. And do the next one. Yeah, that's good. And the same again. Because it's right in this area here, and here a little bit as well, and up round here there's little patches of it. Let's go still with the sap green and into the yellow, but I think we're pretty much pure sap green now. I'll do one more of those. It's not much darker than that, but it's slightly. And then I think I'll start introducing the Hooker's Green light. So let's get that one going. And I've got a quote to put on the other page that just occurred to me while I was setting up. I was trying to think of what words I wanted to use. And I've got a quote which is not about leaves. Originally I was thinking about something to do with autumn leaves. But it's from a song that my dad loved. It was one of my dad's favourite songs, and it's about colour. So I'm going to put a line from that. So that's quite a strong green. I want to be very careful with it to start with, so I shall daub some off onto my little rag. And just put tiny dots to start with, and lots of the sap green and a tiny bit of the Hooker's Green. Let's see where that gets us. Yeah, I can definitely see that's dark. I would have liked it a bit more pigmented. So I'm going to just thicken it with a bit more sap green, straight off the pan. And another daub of the Hooker's Green. And just go over it. That's better. And now I'm going to work back the other way. I like that Hooker's Green. I think it could get slightly muddier. So I will start introducing some of the browns at one point, but I think for now, I think there is that colour in there. I do think I can see that colour in these areas here. So let's a tiny bit more water, not much, a bit more of the green. See, I only barely touched the Hooker's Green and straight away it goes really pigmented, really dark. So the colours are not all the same. I mean, they're not all the same colour, but I mean, some you need a tiny bit and it goes, you know, you really see it, and others are much more subtle. And I'm sure a proper watercolourist will be able to tell you which was what and why. I just know from doing that that's the case. Like there's one of the blues, I think it's the Prussian blue, or it might be the Taylor blue. You barely need to go anywhere near it with your brush and your whole world turns blue. But that's why when I got this, I did all kinds of exercises in swatching and blending colours. I've got a sketchbook in there with, you know, choosing two colours and mixing them in different proportions and all that, just to try and learn about the paints. I see that's really picking up these colours in here now, where it's going much more green. I hope you can see the colours as well as you need to, otherwise you'll just have to take my word for it. So let's just try one that's almost pure Hooker's Green light. Hooker's Green dark, sorry. Of course, you might, if you've got a different paint set, your colours might be, you know, you might have different shades, or you might have less than this. This is quite an extensive set, and so you might have to do a bit more mixing. There we go, that's good. So now I think I'm going to start with some browns. So here I've got my browns. Well, I've got raw umber up here, and I also had yellow ochre and raw sienna that I didn't use. I could have used the yellow ochre, but again, yellow ochre is very opaque. It's very matte and thick. If you can see here on the swatch, you see here. Raw sienna is much more translucent. I tried to keep the water, when I swatched this, I tried to keep the water even, you know, that I pigmented them equally as far as I could, but obviously I'm only a human woman. Because that's important as well, you know, if you did a swatch and you did a really wishy-washy alizarin crimson and then a really dark and thick rose madder, you wouldn't get a true reflection of what they are, if that was important to you. So what brown am I going to go for? That's what I was looking for. I can see the sepia, which is quite a dark brown. The Van Dyke brown's a very dark reddish brown. I think that's maybe more like it actually. But I think I might start with the raw umber and then work my way up to the Van Dyke brown. See, I can even now see sort of burnt sienna in there, which I guess makes sense because we didn't really do oranges as such. We went from yellows to reds, so we got the oranges by combining. I mean, I didn't do any of these oranges up here. You know, those are too bright. So could easily have got some burnt sienna in there. But let's start, let's go with the raw umber, which is, let's get some of that green off my brush, which is my third one from the end. Put my leaf down. I'm going to put it on here next to that green. And just get a tiny bit of it into the green to start with. Again, you see it's quite strong, it's changed that green quite quickly. I'll get more green in there. I did a bit too much really. Let's go for that. Well, let's see, that's quite a big jump. I might put a bit of green over the top. Where were we? Were in the hooker's green, weren't we? So that's there. This is why my paints get all messy. I don't know if anybody keeps their paint palette absolutely pristine. That's better. So now I've done that, now I'll go back to that mix that I had. I can use that for the next one. A bit more brown because I greened it up with the green that was on my brush. I think I need a bit more brown in that now. So while it's still wet, you can almost mix it on the page. When you've got good quality paper, if you try and do things like that on cheap paper, it won't work. You know, because the paper will buckle and so on. That's darker than that, but I'm not worried for this. I could lift. I wonder if I can still lift some of that off. Apparently, I am worried. I'm going to try and lift some off. I don't want to lift it and then print it somewhere else. Let's just do it like that. And then I'm going to clean my brush and just have it slightly damp and just see if I can blend it up a bit like that. That's better. Okay, so now we're going to go, I think this is going to go into the raw umber. I'll get some more raw umber and put it here. Running out of palette, I can always go over here, I guess. And then I'm going to put a bit of the green into the raw umber. So I hope that makes sense. What I'm doing is I'm sort of starting with one colour and then adding little bits of the next colour to it. And then when I'm ready to go on to the next colour, in the beginning I add little bits of the previous colour to make the transitions. I think I'm going to just mix that there because I know it. It's quite strong. It holds up against that green. So I'm looking for a raw umber that's got some green tinge to it to start with. Let's try that. That was quite wet, but I think the colour's quite good. Yeah, that's the colour's spot on even. I have got it quite watery though, so then I go back in without going into the water again. I just go back onto the paint pan and just get a bit more pigment and mix that into that same little pool that I used before. And try the next one. So it's the same colour, I just added a bit more, it's not the same colour, I added more brown, but it's also denser, it's more opaque. I don't know all the terms. So let's go even brown, let's go sort of almost neat brown. So let's get the rest of that sorry, raw umber, mix it into that puddle. So this little bit of brown is, sorry, the little bit of the green is still there somewhere, but it's mostly the raw umber. Is that, do you think there's a difference? They show up much purer when they're dry and the sun's come out again. So for the final one, I'm going to take raw umber directly off the pan. It's not the final one, I've got another one to do, but I'm going to start introducing the other brown there. Yeah, see, I think it was so strong there that you can't really see there was any green in. But no matter. So now we're going to go into the, what did we say, the Van Dyke brown, which is this one, yes. Yes. So a little bit of a clean, this one here, I haven't used it very much apparently. See the ones that I, like the Gamboge is right down and the raw sienna is right down. You see what are your favourite colours. So I'll just put this over here somewhere. Put the leaf down again, I keep holding on to the leaf. So I'm not very keen on this palette. I much prefer working on my old plate, but this would fit it in better, you know, into the space that I've got at the moment. So now I want to add a tiny bit of my Van Dyke brown to my burnt raw umber. So I'm just going to go into that, which was a pool of pure raw umber, and just mix in the Van Dyke brown that's on my brush. Maybe just add a little bit more. It's gone a bit dark, a bit quick. There we go. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And now we're going to add a bit of that mix back into the Van Dyke brown itself. Maybe get a bit more. Which one is it? That one? Oh, I had some there. Well, that's gone very strong, so I'm going to take it back a bit. I love all this fiddling about and mixing, and you know, and this is probably one of the reasons why I like watercolour. I also like the finished look of watercolour, as opposed to, you know, other kinds of paint. That's personal taste. So I'll go there and compare. Yeah, that's good, that's good, that's good. So now I'll add a bit more of the brown into there. I have to remember where I was on the palette now. I don't think I've got much room to manoeuvre between Van Dyke brown and raw umber. I think they're too close in colour. And that's pretty pure Van Dyke brown now. So I could either just leave that at that, which leaves a gap. It would depend if that disturbed you or not. I guess it depends on how you look at it. If you look upon it as taking all the colours from the leaf, then there are as many as there are, and that's that. But if you look upon it as making a pretty pattern on your page, you might want to have 3 things in there. So what could you do then? Well, you could, well, I could darken the Van Dyke brown. I don't think that is being unreasonable. I could even say the colour of the stem, which is very dark brown. So what I could do is go back into my Payne's Grey, which is this one. And did I use lamp black before? No, I did use Payne's Grey. And just put a tiny weeny bit of that in. A bit more. That darkened it. I think I can go even darker. A bit more. Oh, now I've got very dark. I went too dark. I'll go back to this one. That's good. that's okay. Maybe now that one. Next. Yeah, that's good. Looking at my stem now. The stem has actually got a kind of reddish tinge to it. I might mix a bit of the red in for the very last swatch. A bit more Payne's grey. A bit more red. This is where you end up with mud, but it's kind of the colour I want anyway, so there we go, I think that's it. Very last one. The brush has now gone a bit dry from all the faffing about. That'll do, pig. There we go, so that's my swatching. I shall clean that later, clean the palette at least. Now I have to, oh no, I wanted the palette possibly. Now I'm going to try and do some kind of wash on this page because I don't want it just white. So it might go horribly wrong, but I don't care. I can always tear the page out if it goes horribly wrong. So I think I'm just going to wash with what I've got on my palette. Get my palette back on so you can see. Oops, sorry for the clang. I'll just do it sort of, you know. Actually, I need a bigger brush. Let's get my big moppy brush. This is a big quill brush also from Jackson's. I treated myself to 3 brushes from there because some kind person on Kofi gave me a donation some time ago because I was saying about my paintbrushes not being very good and told me to. So that's where I got myself some decent brushes. I don't remember the person's name, I'm so sorry. But thank you very much if that was you. I did thank them at the time. So I got the mop brush, the square brush, and then a finer brush. So I'm just going to basically, I can't really go mad with the water because of the nature of the paper. I don't know if that ink will activate. It was distress ink, but it's been there a while, so probably not. If it was watercolour or what do you call it, mixed media paper, you could use much more water than I'm using, but like I said, I'm only on very cheap copy paper. I'm just basically using up the colour and making the page not be white anymore. That's my only goal. I'm just creating a background to stick my leaves onto. Actually, if you're doing this, if you're cleaning your palette, if you were going to just go and wash that palette and wash all the paint down the sink, if you do collage as well, excuse me, if you just have some scrap paper at the side of you, you can just do this onto the scrap paper and then that paper can become collage paper. You know, if you don't have all those jelly prints and things that I've shown you in the past that I've done at my friends because I don't have the equipment for jelly printing, you can just do this and make yourself nice collage papers. Just use up your leftover paint when you've been painting. There's another little idea that I just had. I learnt that from my friend because when she uses a brayer to apply paint to her jelly, what do you call them? Jelly plate, that's it. And then she always brayers off onto scrap bits of newsprint or whatever. Or just, you know, old book page or anything, and then uses those pages in her collage work. But there's no reason why you can't do the same with a paintbrush. Right, I think that is good enough. I'm just going to leave that to dry a bit. I haven't gone down into the gutter, but I don't care. I'm feeling messy today. So now I've got hardly anything left on there to clean apart from that cad yellow that I left on there before, but that you can be reused, so that's why I've left that there. Don't know what that is. Bit of something. So yeah, there's no reason why you can't leave that on there. Right, so I'll wait for that to dry, and then I'll come back. So I'll pause the video and yeah, I'll be back in a bit. Okay, it's pretty much dry, at least it's dry down here where I want to write. So what I've done is I've just got a little piece of brown parcel tape. just this stuff. I'm just going to use that to stick them on by their stem. I might need to come back later on and put something here or something, you know. And I played about with the placement of them. I've got this stuck to my finger. I played about with the placement of them, you know, whether I had them like that or whatever. But what I quite like is them just sort of in a little cascade of 3 like that. So just something like that. Just hold them like they're a bouquet and just see where they fall. Actually, maybe like that's quite nice, and I can write here. I'll do them there. So I'm just going to stick them on with that. I'm going to try and stay where you put. Stick one side down, run my nail along the edges of the stems. And just try and make sure that the tape is stuck to all the stems so they don't pull out. I mean, they're in a journal, they're not going to get waved about or anything. Should be okay. I just sort of liked that scrapbooking idea of just, you know, it's just 3 leaves and I've just stuck them in with a bit of tape. I haven't done anything fancy with them. I'll see how they get on because they are now a bit flippy floppy and they'll get fragile. But I've been saying all along that I'm not worried by the ephemeral nature of these leaves. That's why I haven't done any glycerin or, you know, waxing or anything like that with them. We'll just see what happens. So I think that makes quite a nice trio of projects with the leaves, and next week we'll probably move on to something else. So that was the first one where I stitched different species together. The second one where I mended it with an eyelet, and then this week we've swatched the colours. And I'm going to write down here, I think, let me just stand up. I think you can see really everything you need to see, to be honest. So down here I'm going to write, and it's the song True Colours by Cyndi Lauper. And my dad absolutely loved it. He found her voice so moving and soulful, and he would get tears in his eyes when he listened to it. So I'm going to write, I think it's the last line of the song, which is this. I'm just going to write it in my own handwriting. And I'm going to write the English colours. Cyndi probably didn't put the U in there. There we go, Cyndi Lauper. I don't know if she did actually write it. I don't know, I should have checked that. Anyway, she certainly sang it. Your true colours are beautiful like a rainbow. And I just thought it was appropriate because, like I said, you look at a leaf and you might see it as red or whatever, but you look into it and you see there's actually all these other colours. It's true colours. I played a bit fast and loose, I know, with what was there and what I had available to me, but there is some estimation of all of those shades of colour in one of these leaves. So there we go. So I hope you have fun with that if you decide to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more journaling tales. Until then, lots of love and kisses. Bye bye.